it sounded like I was having a stroke in the middle of that outro. Awesome.
So I was getting my head at the end too of the episode. I was like, ah, shit, what did I say?
That's all right. That's all right. That's we're very human here. very,
Yes, very
very
much
human.
so. Very much so.
But yeah, this was a ton of fun. This movie is
Hell yeah.
it's so fucking dumb, but in the best ways
It's so
sometimes.
fucking dumb,
It's
dude.
But yeah, if you're down for a film like that, and I'm not always in that headspace, but sometimes I need a dumb film too.
Yeah,
So
this is like almost like a palate cleanser. Like watch some really good like Christmas horror, and then be like, I need a little break in between.
yep. Yeah, get
This is
your
the one.
OG Black Christmas on.
Mhm.
Watch Gremlins, sure.
Hell
And some of the other fun stuff, but then
yeah.
throw this in the middle.
Yeah, this is where you get drunk.
Yeah.
This is the drunk one.
Hello, horror fan, best friends, and ghoulish knights, and welcome to the 54th episode of Murders with Mertens. I'm your host, Joe, and this is a podcast about horror, Christmas horror comedies, cosmic horror, body horror, folk horror, sci-fi horror, the horror-adjacent thrillers, the psychologically terrifying, scary films in general. Each episode, I sit down with a guest and discuss one of their favorite scary films so we can gush about everything that makes it just so damned cool. Viewers, thank you for the support. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below. It certainly helps with the engagement. If you haven't already, maybe consider subscribing to the channel if you are so inclined. It's free to do, and you look cool doing it. Audio listeners, the show is also available on podcast services around the world like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so don't forget to leave a rating and a comment when you stop by. 5 stars if you are a real one. But enough of all that housekeeping, as I have the pleasure of welcoming back for his third Murders with Mertens appearance, your doctor-recommended dose of daily nerdiness, Mr. Carlos Rodriguez. Carlos, welcome back.
Thank you for having me, Joe. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
It's the time of the year, this beautiful time of year that we get to talk about Christmas horror.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. A little subgenre that, a little underrated. Sometimes people only think of Gremlins and, stuff like that. But at the end of the day,
It
you've
has
got
a lot of movies.
3 different
There's
Black Christmases. Maybe only one of them's good, but, it's.
and 2 of them are at least completely different from each other. Like,
Yeah.
they have the same name, but like completely genres, like
Yep.
different.
That's about it. It's but yeah, just last night was in the Nightlight Discord. We were doing a not watch party for Krampus. That was a ton of fun.
Great movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I actually forced my parents to watch that with me last Christmas time, and they didn't hate it. That's kind of high praise.
It's very funny, very funny. I'm
Oh
going
yeah.
to sing high praises because I love Michael Dougherty since we spoke of Trick or Treat before, and he
Yeah.
did that, and then Krampus. But yeah, that movie is rock solid movie. Rock.
Killer cast. Yeah, it is good times. But other than that, just soldiering on through the fall and the early winter here, and getting super obsessed with Dawn to Dawn as we're recording this.
Me, yep.
10th episode is up. It is good times.
So good.
The manga is about to be back on Monday. I can't wait for that. But
I'm
yeah,
jealous because you're ahead. Like I have to catch up.
oh god, I burned through that so fast. Yeah, but it's just the most fun little wacky bonkers over the top sci-fi horror comedy romance. I don't even know. It's but it's fun as hell, and I'm glad there are so many people who are into it and are more than willing to gush about it. So it's been a fun one.
Yep.
But yeah, it's I gotta dig into some Christmas horror that I haven't gotten around to before, or at least that I haven't seen in quite some time this year. I need to put a little short list together, I think. But
I know
Yeah.
it's already, as of recording, we're like at least a week into the this Christmas holiday season, and it's
Mhm.
like, oh man, this is the only one I've watched so far. I'm like, there's definitely more.
I
There's so
know,
much
right?
more,
It's
and there's so many like I missed, and I'm like, oh well, it's February. Well, I'm not gonna watch it now. I'll wait till next Christmas. I'm like,
right.
I gotta make a list of it.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I think it's easy to watch a lot of other holiday horror, of which there's not a lot, but at other times, specifically Halloween stuff, just because
Yeah.
it goes hand in hand with horror in general, and I think it feels like every time is good time for spooky season. So, um, for those who aren't familiar, you've been on the show before, but I know you've got plenty going on these days. Where can people find you, Carlos?
Yeah, so I just recently joined Point in Progress as their sixth member. So we are slowly making our climb to 500 subs on YouTube. So check that out, youtube.com/point in progress. But launched a couple shows there. We have a spooky season show, basically, because again, spooky season is all year long for us, horror folk out there. And I jumped into playing through the Remedy universe for the first time with Alan Wake, and I thought that would be more psychological Twin Peaks esque stuff, and that's there, but there are just straight up horror elements. Like everyone talks about Alan Wake 2 being scary. I'm like, there's multiple clips of me screaming out of nowhere, like ah, not expecting like some lumberjack chainsaw guy coming after me. I'm like, this is just a small town village with weird shit going on. Why is this happening?
Uh-huh.
I'm
Uh-huh.
just a writer. But yeah, we launched that as of this recording, and when actually when it's posted, at least the full main campaign of the game will be out on youtube.com/point of progress. And the name of the show, it's not a loop, it's a spiral, which I have no context for that. Shout out to Mario who created the title for that. And he's like, don't worry, by the time you get to the end of this series, you'll understand what this means. I'm like, oh, okay, so I'll take your word for it. Like, it sounds cool. It
Nice.
sounds like a cool title. So yeah, what I colloquially called book one, Alan Wake. The main campaign is finished, and so we have some bonus chapters. Because there is some DLC that came out with this remastered version, so they should be making their way onto youtube.com/point in progress. And then as well, me and Sly over at Point in Progress launched a show called DC Graduates. It's kind of like a spiritual successor to their MC University show, where we go through and we tell you that DC movies can be good as long as they're animated.
I mean, that seems to be the prevailing wisdom. So yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah.
and that's obviously that's a joke.
Yeah.
James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie, very good movie.
Yes.
Shazam 1,
Yes.
very fun. Like there's some hidden gems in there,
Yeah.
but generally the animation side kills it. So yeah, we've been having fun with
Right.
that. We're deep into season 2 right now. But it's not something you need to like, oh, do I have to watch season 1? No, you can just jump in anytime. Any movie you like, just we'll reference other stuff that we recorded, but honestly, as long as you've seen the movie or you're interested in that movie, watch it. Yeah, good time.
Nah, it sounds great. Yeah. Uh, I'm trying to think what else I had that well, I guess it's not really that important. Because ultimately I just want to get into this thing because this was
Yeah.
kind of a bonkers film. Tonight we're gonna dive into 2005 Santa's Sleigh, written and directed by David Steinman. This is his first and only writer director credit, and I think he only got the gig because he worked for Brett Ratner, and he was a producer on the film. The fucking scumbag that he is.
Which I never noticed until this past reviewing it. It's like I have notes
Yeah,
in different colors now because of again I've talked about this pre-show.
yeah.
I did notes for my old wrestling podcast because I wanted to mess with my co-host back then. I'm like, you got to watch this movie; it's so good. Which is it's fun. It's not good. It's fun, but
Yeah,
I wrote notes back then. And then I was like, wrote new ones. I was like, Brett Ratner produced this. Holy shit! What?
yeah, yeah. He was cranking out a ton of stuff in this time period, so I
Yeah, it
suppose
was.
it all makes sense. But yeah, it's eh, yeah, yeah. Brett Ratner,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Fucking
um,
cockroach.
yes. But we'll try to move beyond that. And I'm just going to preface a
Mhm.
lot of this conversation with it's going to sound like I'm shitting on this film to no end. And I really don't mean it in that way. But
Yes,
there's just
yes,
stuff that's just low hanging fruit in the worst
yes,
possible ways. Um,
100%. The humor is very 2000s,
oh,
2005.
absolutely.
A lot like some of the subtle stuff or some of like the penile jokes that you get,
Yeah.
very funny if you have that kind of sense of humor.
Oh, yeah.
That still stands, I would say, the test of time. And some of the other jokes or like the very over your head jokes, like we'll talk about in a little bit, but there are some very aughts like jokes,
Oh, yeah.
gay jokes and things like that nature. It was like,
Yeah.
wow, that
Yeah.
was the time. That was the time. Not okay then, not okay now.
No, no. It's, but yeah, well, we'll work our way through those.
Mhm.
But yeah, it also has just this absolutely stacked cast. Led by Bill Goldberg, of course, and featuring
Yes.
kind of this who's who of 90s and 2000s personalities. And I gotta say, I immediately thought of Ernest Saves Christmas
Oh my
because
god,
the
yes.
film being shot in that movie is Christmas Sleigh, SLAY, just like this one.
Yes, I totally
So,
forgot about
you know,
that, yeah.
other than it being, almost Christmas and this being a dumb and fun horror comedy, Carlos, why this film specifically?
So, I mean, if you know me, you know of me talking on the internet. It's no shock to you that I love professional wrestling, and I at the time, this might have been 2006, I would say. I found this film on a little network at the time called Spike TV, because this is the perfect movie for Spike TV, and
Mhm.
at that time, it's because Spike TV at the time had the rights to professional wrestling. They had Monday Night Raw at that time, and kind of works hand in hand. Bill Goldberg being a Hall of Fame wrestler, depending on how you feel about his work rate. I'm not here to discuss that. This is not a wrestling podcast. Uh, but famously Jewish pro wrestler decided to do a movie where he plays, Santa Claus, an evil Santa Claus, and at that, and it has some interesting lore stuff in here that we'll get into. But I initially kind of stumbled upon it on a very lonely, probably night in 2006 around this holiday season, and Spike TV loves edgy stuff. Um, and I think I just ended up watching the TV edit of it. I mean, it's not hard to watch a TV edit of this, other than like the first maybe 10 minutes. It's not super gory. I think what makes it rated R is a lot of the words they use in this movie, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I will. There's some trivia at the end. I will hit you with the TV version, but I ended up watching the TV version. I enjoyed it. Like kind of like had a couple drinks, had some snacks, and then next thing I know, I was like, wow, that was an enjoyable hour 20 minutes. That didn't waste my
It's really
time too
short.
much. It is
Yeah,
short. I
it's
think that and them knowing that they're in a very hokey movie helps a million tons. Because I mean, for everyone who loves normal I wanted to preface normal Christmas movies, right? These Hallmark movies, these hot frosties and things like that. There's a level of cheese that comes to it,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's fine. There's something about this holiday specifically that level of cheese kind of it's fine. It's okay. We accept it in our films. Watching Elf, is very cheesy, very funny, very cute. Or you watch something like Christmas Vacation, and like a lot of those jokes are very funny, very good. And there's still that cheese factor of like, I just want a perfect Christmas and things like that. So I think that really works to their benefits here when you see the cast who actually, the main cast, not the very beginning cameos that
Right.
you get, but the main cast of the movie just look like they're having a ball, just shooting the shit and just doing these hokey lines and these very, very dumb Christmas jokes, or as they fumble their way through this like murder mystery thing. It looks like it's a fun movie. It looks like that. So
Yeah.
while watching, I noticed it and I was like, it started to enjoy it more and more.
All right. All right. Yeah, you'd mentioned that opening scene, and it's like the one bit of the film that was filmed in LA. And it makes perfect sense when you think about the cast and everything, because there are people that are not in the rest of the film and were probably very easy gets for the people making the film. So yeah, that kind of makes sense.
One
Uh,
specifically always shocks me every time I see him. Well, and it was like I have in my notes twice, one from 2021 and one from last night, being like, really, I don't know how they got him. Like, what was going on
yep.
in 2004, 2005 with this actor?
And I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about. And I'm thinking to
Mhm.
myself, yeah, his performance kind of tells you what he thinks about being here too.
Oh yeah,
But yeah. Well, what do you say we get into it?
that's it.
We start with the worst Christmas dinner ever. The daughters are greedy. Their aunt's husband is extra handsy with their mother. Their father hates life and dry turkey. I mean, it's not great. It's not great. We've got Fran Drescher of the nanny bringing in
Yeah,
this turkey that looks like a football in color. It's that turkey is done. It is
yeah.
done. But she plops that down on the table. You got the daughters talking about what they hope they get for Christmas, and I think it's their aunt, played
Yeah,
by Rebecca Gayheart, at the other end of the table. You know, telling them not to settle, and Fran's like, hey, I want to teach my kids good values. And, you know, we have the aunt's husband, played by Chris Kattan, of all
Chris
people.
Kattan.
Yeah.
I said that was Chris Kattan.
Yes.
Mango, if you will.
Yes. Mr. Peepers.
Mr.
Um,
Peepers. Yep.
yep.
There we go. That's it.
So yeah, some like wonderfully philandering husband character who's gross as hell to his wife and also extra handsy with Fran. And who would be at the other end of the table but motherfucking James Caan?
Godfather's own
Yes,
James
yes.
Caan.
Michael Mann's Thief. It's James Caan, who is not credited in this movie.
I don't know what hoops he had to go through the SAG. Well, you know, Fran Drescher being the president of SAG after.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if she was at the time, but what strings did he have? He's like, Fran, listen, I can't do this. I can't do this, Fran. You got to help me on this one. I've done theater.
Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah.
can't do this. Listen,
There's
I also am about to
probably
do
a
this movie
reason.
called Elf.
Yeah.
Like, right, it's right there. It's right. This is better Christmas movie
Oh.
right along the horizon.
Yeah. And
That was, by the way, whiplash. Watching Elf with my children. They go to bed. I'm like, I'm gonna watch this movie for our show, and I'll watch Santa Slay. I'm like, I forgot James Caan's in both of these movies.
well, there's probably a good reason why he's not credited, because he probably
Mm,
wanted nothing to do with this thing. It's so funny because you look on IMDb and typically they will have the actor on there and it'll say uncredited, but nothing at all on the page for Santa's Sleigh. It's on the Wikipedia, but
mm-hmm,
it was weird.
mm-hmm.
That was weird. But yeah, it's you've got him commenting about the turkey, how he wants it not to taste like a shoe like it did last year because it was just so overcooked, and how she's essentially dehydrating this turkey. And there's some, jokes about, oh, you want it to be moist. It's called foreplay, because clearly they are unhappy in their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, all this lovely back and forth. And Chris Kattan getting extra handsy with her, James Caan realizing what is happening, and him throwing a slur at him, but also threatening to stab him in the eye with a fork. Um, you know, eh, he's not credited in this role. And it's such a fucking shame because other than his use of
Really,
that slur, I do love his performance. The so detached. It's
yes, and
it,
he's got this Vincent Price esque like mustache to
uh-huh.
him, and he is hamming it up, and it's a fun like kind of
Yeah.
hamming it up. They all are very like at 11. Every one of
Oh
these
yeah.
movies, and maybe not Rebecca Gayheart. She's very underplayed in this. 'Cause
Yeah.
typically, I think of Rebecca Gayheart. I think of Urban Legends
Yep.
1 and 2 for a specific reason, and not as theatrical as she is in those movies. You
Yeah.
know, and it's still fun to see that. But man, James Caan is just like
Yeah, he even
also
has this
yeah.
reaction to the dog. There's this Pomeranian who has this over the top dog bed, and I think the dog's name is like Scribbles or something like that.
Yes.
And when somebody says the dog's name, he's got this visceral disgust in his voice
Yeah.
about it. It's yeah, and yeah. So
But what happened? Like, I need to know, like, how did this first time director, first time writer get James Caan of all people? Like, I know James Caan's like star at this point was very low,
yeah,
but like not to this point, I don't think. And that's not to bemoan everyone else who's in the movie. Like you have, we'll see later, Emily DeRaven from Lost Sake, and all this
Mhm.
stuff. Like this is one of her earlier roles, so that makes sense. Like she's on the come up. Robert Culp,
yeah.
he's had a long
Towards the
career.
end of
Like
his
this,
career, yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, but James Caan's like still, he's been working. What happened?
yeah.
How did we get here?
Yeah. So yeah, the whole thing about the fork in the eye, and
Mhm.
ultimately, Fran, she diffuses the situation by asking her daughter to say grace. The daughter rambles on with her prayer, being an absolute horrible, spoiled rich kid, while Chris and Rebecca exchange kind of confused looks about some of the things that she's saying. And then we get some booming footsteps from above and a blast of soot down the chimney, and the dog goes to investigate. And Santa slams his way down and bursts through the chimney, throwing his hat onto a hook like he's Sean Connery's James Bond. It's yeah, it's a good entrance.
So smooth. It
Yep.
is. It really is surprising.
We get a
It really is.
very nanny performance from Fran Drescher here with her line delivery and her laugh, and then he responds to her, "Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus," and then kicks that dog into a ceiling fan. The dog gets spun around and flung back into the fireplace behind him. Then he just barrel rolls the length of the table to impale the father's hands with the chef's knife and the meat
So
fork from the
impressive.
turkey platter. You get the one girl passing out when he looks at her and falling backward, impaling herself on one of the wooden spires of this just over the top dog bed that's right behind her. The other daughter's just slinking under the table. Santa's guzzling some booze, and then he spits it like a flamethrower onto Fran Drescher, lighting her hair on fire. You got Chris Kattan standing up to fight, trying to act tough,
Oh,
but
good.
it's Chris fucking Kattan. So Santa just kicks him into a china cabinet, and then he drowns Fran in the eggnog.
Great kill. It was a
Yep,
great kill.
yeah, wonderful kill, and she was looking pretty worse for wear already too, with all of her hair burned off. But next, she breaks off a table leg to bash Rebecca Gayhart's head in, and then throws the tree topper like a throwing star into the remaining daughter's back. Meanwhile, you got dad. He's trying to free his hands from the table by trying to pull the knife and the fork out with his
With his mouth.
teeth. Yeah.
I
Uh,
didn't notice it this time around. I don't know. Something about James Caan trying to do this. It's like again, it's just the novelty is James Caan.
uh,
Again, James
I,
Caan doing this.
what do you think? Do you think he just got paid scale for this or what? It's
I would hope. I would hope so, man. I hope he got like, or they. This is where the budget went.
yeah, it could be. It could be.
God.
Um, yeah, Santa grabs a turkey leg off the bird and he jams it down his throat, and then finishes the job by slamming Khan's face down onto the table, forcing the turkey leg the rest of the way through. Um, yeah. Then we get the title card and opening credits depicting how Santa was forced into his role.
Yes.
We won't get quite into that yet because there's exposition later that goes over that. But we cut to Hell Township on Christmas Eve. This is like somewhere in the Midwest, like nondescript Midwest, right?
Mhm. Yeah, just like middle of America. Like they have. I mean, literally. What at one point we see they're just like hunting. They have like gun competitions on Christmas Day. Like that's
Right.
how middle of America this is.
I know. And that bit like really makes it feel like the part of Canada that it was filmed in. But, you know, I,
That's
I guess. And you even have like Hasidic Jews on the sidewalk in this small town.
yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if you saw any of this, but apparently the like overall very funny joke, like over your head joke that like not a lot of people realize is like 80% of the cast is Jewish.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like 85% of the cast is Jewish playing these very
Very
like
traditional Christian
yeah.
roles. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just built tradition, like very, very strict Jewish man, Bill Goldberg,
Right.
who was once, wrestler, playing this evil Santa, which that gets a kick out of me in general. But it's there's so much of the
Oh
cast and
yeah.
crew is just straight up Jewish as hell.
They're
And
having a
that's like
great
the
time.
overall joke. They are. And honestly, I would too. That's hilarious. That's like the ultimate joke against the Christians.
Yeah. We've got this old bag in this deli trying to order a
Oh
sandwich,
my god.
and she and the young man at the counter are giving each other a pretty hard time. She starts giving him shit about his crazy grandfather because now, of course, she's getting personal.
Mhm.
And then whines with the owner over the price of the sandwich because she's supposed to get a senior discount. They're like trying to make her this film's Mrs. Deagle from Gremlins.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Then the owner, who is clearly Jewish, wishes her a happy holiday, and she throws that back in his face, telling him that he should wish her a Merry Christmas. And then when he does, she thanks him and tells him to go fuck himself, along with calling the young lady wiping the counter a fucking whore on her way out the door. Yeah.
Very George Bush era
Oh,
America.
yeah. Yeah. Well, very,
Especially the
very
happy holidays part. I was like, oh, this feels like 2000.
also kind of feels like right now, but that's a very separate topic. Um,
It's
we
not
got
this podcast.
Yep, yep. We got the old bag driving home. It's bad. She's going super slow and she's weaving everywhere. She's like trying to light a fresh cigarette. Not to mention the fact that she was smoking in this deli. Um, she's gross. And Santa is stuck behind her on the sleigh. We get an almost ludicrous move, bitch, get out the way. He
So
blasts
good.
this horn from the sleigh. She leans out the window, telling him to suck it. It's just great. So Santa's buffalo or whatever the hell it is that's dragging this sleigh.
It's hell deer. I'm like, it's a buffalo.
Yep,
It's
that's
clearly a
very much
buffalo.
a made up buffalo. Basically headbutts her car and sends it flying off the road where it crashes in just spectacular fashion. And you get Santa cackling as he drives on. Um, yeah, it's good.
So
She gets a fitting end. It's not a chairlift that gets
thrown out the
weaponized.
house. Yeah.
Yeah. But
It's still satisfying. It's not as satisfying, but it's still satisfying.
yeah. Um, yeah, and then back at the deli, the owner has gifts for his two employees, giving the young lady a snow globe, featuring Wisconsin for some reason.
Yes.
And he makes that comment about how he gave her one with Delaware the year before. Is the plan to have her work for like 50 years and she gets a new state
Every
every
state.
year? Yeah,
There's like all the shitty states until
right.
you build up to like the last was like New York or California.
Oh God. And then yeah, it gives the unman a world clock, which at the time it's like, okay, that's something. Now it's something we just expect to all have on our cell phones. Um, but yeah, it's they make a big point of this world clock thing. Um, but we'll get
It's
into
so
that
important to
later.
this movie. Yeah.
Yes, it kind of is. Um, but yeah, he sends them home for the night, and she offers the young man a ride. Her nickname is Mac. He's Nick or Nikki. Um, and clearly she's interested because she's rubbing some toothpaste around her mouth with her finger before, while he's putting the bike in the back of her truck. Um, and they drive off, and we get a really horrible tune that's trying so hard to be Run DMC's Christmas song from the mid
God, I
80s.
wish they had the money to get a
Oh
Hollis and
my
Creek,
God. But this
Christmas in
is not
Hollis.
Die
I
Hard.
wish.
This is not Die Hard.
No,
So
unfortunately not.
Yeah. Nick is not feeling it, so Mac turns down the volume, and she calls him out for not liking Christmas. He's just kind of always found it disappointing. He always wanted Transformers or He-Man toys, and he'd just end up getting like the knockoff Easy Bake Oven. Um, that we'll get a call back to that eventually.
Yes.
She drops him off at a house with no Christmas lights on, and he spends this ridiculous amount of time digging out hide keys to let himself in. It's not just the one under a rock. No,
There's like
after
three.
he's done with that, there's another one behind some type of I don't know, decorative thing, or it was either that or it was a
Yeah.
outdoor thermometer or something like that. But he gets himself inside, he turns off the alarm and he locks the door and he calls for his grandpa. Um, and no response, but he goes for a drink and he hears breaking glass and then the power goes out. So Nick grabs a flashlight to search for his grandpa in the basement. Immediately goes down to the basement. And when he goes to flip a breaker, he's startled by his grandpa, who drops a second box of light bulbs. It's Robert Culp, um, who's just got some fantastic hair going on in this movie. But yeah, Grandpa, he's something of an inventor and a little bit of a prepper. Apparently, he's been MIA for a couple of days. Nick picks up this nutcracker and it ends up firing a projectile that ricochets all around the basement like half a dozen times. It deflects off of things before it finally stops. Um, that's dangerous. There should have been a label on that thing, I'm thinking. Um,
Yeah. He doesn't seem the safest.
no, no, not at all.
Nicholas is his grandfather. Which again, you mentioned this, and it's weird to also think about. Not too much because we mentioned it earlier, but like Robert Culp is at the end of his career.
Mhm.
I mean, he's done so much at this point, right? Greatest American Hero, I Spy, all these other things. A lot of seminal things in my childhood watching like, reruns and stuff. So
Sure.
like to see him in this, I remember watching it and I was like, why does this old man look familiar? And then I got in front of a computer, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I've seen him my whole life growing up. Like, wow, I did not expect to see him here. It was very shocking.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
Grandpa takes him to the bunker, which is just kind of looks like something of a safe room behind tapestry on the wall. Nick kind of has some doubts about his sanity, and Grandpa would rather think people, well, he'd rather people think him nuts and be alive than the alternative because, he kind of hints that there's something coming. Um, Cut to Santa ringing a bell next to a Salvation Army pot, and then this mugger tries to rob him, but he turns the tables on him by jamming the sharp end of a candy cane that he was eating just then into the mugger's eye, and then just picking him up and tossing him into this open dumpster. And I love how there's other people on the street while this is going on too.
Yeah, no one's the wiser. No one's the
Yeah,
wiser.
nobody's really
And he's
paying
actually
attention.
pretty nice with that little girl. He is fairly, like, decent to her as she walks by.
Yeah.
This Santa, at least, which is strange considering that, he's got free reign now that we'll find out
Yeah,
soon.
yeah. Well, he's a picker and chooser, I guess. Um,
Mhm.
Back at the ranch, Grandpa farts in Nick's face, and they head back upstairs. They do the whole Shaun of the Dead. I'm sorry, Nicky. You're sorry. You're sorry for what? That thing. Um, but at this point, Nick just kind of wants the truth as far as what's going on, why his grandfather hates Christmas so much, why the old man doesn't have a great opinion about Santa. And the dude retrieves this just ancient text from this way over the top floor safe with this massive gear on the side. It's he just starts laying it all out. Apparently Santa is the child of Satan and the Virgin Erica. I don't know who Erica is. but
that felt like very just like some girl named Erica.
sure. There were always killings in ancient times on the anniversary of his birth. But after the spread of Christianity, communities would pray for protection. And in the 11th century, an angel was sent in the form of a man. Oh, fuck, it's carolers. Story's done for now. So Grandpa walks off to deal with that because he can't stand it. And Nick flips the page back, and we've got the creepy buffalo. This is not Appa. This is very much a different type of flying bison.
Was disgruntled cousin.
Yes, yes. We'll call him Marvin. But no, it's not carolers. It's actually Mary again, or Mac, her nickname. She's dropping off Wolverine for Nick's grandpa. They're doing everything they can to just drive home that her family is a bunch of hunters and gun nuts. And
yeah, just insane hillbillies.
Yep. And
I love Robert Culp's face. He does such a good job of selling. He's like, "Oh, thank you."
Right.
As he opens it up and just sees the bugs crawling on it, he's like, "Thank you so much."
Yeah, didn't want it to get cold. She had to hurry it right over. It's oh God, I don't even think it's cooked. But yeah. She also has a present for Nick, and he opens up the wrapping paper to find a gun, and he uses a nasty slur towards her. That's we're just gonna gloss right over that. But this is where she's like, no, dumbass, and she shows him that it's a transformer, like he always wanted. That is such a dollar store transformer. I love it.
I worry about the plastics in there. There's probably lead in there.
Yep. I also worry about his mental acuity there, because at the end of the day, he's holding this gun that is clearly a hunk of plastic that's just a freaking knockoff transformer, and he thinks that she gave him a real gun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, you can tell how unfamiliar he is with guns.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he, at the end of the day, he's happy because it's something that he always wanted. And yeah, we cut to the local church where we've got Doug fucking McKenzie right there, asking his followers to dig deep.
What a delight.
I love whenever Dave Thomas shows up with something. Yeah.
Canadian national treasure Dave Thomas popped up in this movie. And I'm telling you, that might have been like one of the moments I was like, there's something here. Like 2006 Carlos was probably like, wait, hold on. We got Bill Goldberg, who's actually having fun and doing a decent job as his funny killing Santa. And you're giving me Dave Thomas? I'm in right now.
Yep.
I'm sold.
Yep, and he is doing everything he can to get his congregation to dig deep into those wallets as that collection plate's going on. You know, I want to see bills. I don't want to see coins, you know, that kind of stuff. And it immediately cuts from that to him pulling up at the strip club and giving his wife some excuses as far as why he's going to be late. Yep, and he heads inside, and Santa follows. Santa has the valet park his sleigh and goes to head inside. I love how the valet just kind of gingerly walks up to the sleigh, hops in, and that buffalo takes off. Yeah, drags him away. Yeah, and the bouncer isn't going to let Santa in at first, but yeah. Santa just chokes him out with some garland, and there's that, you know, it's one of those cool over the back choking somebody out behind you type
just
moves.
flips him up. Yeah.
Yep.
There's a quick. I noticed it this time around too. There's a quick shot of the bouncer's face, and his eyes go bloodshot.
Yep.
For a quick, I was like, wow, that's a. Listen, I'm not. I do like this movie. It's very funny, very
it's
that was like
dumb
a decent
fun.
moment. Yeah, there was a decent moment for like kill wise. I was like, oh, okay, look, there's something here.
Yeah. It's they're not skimping on the effects when, you know, they could. It's for a movie like this. It's So yeah, that's fun. Um, Santa gets inside there, and we get this cheesy ho ho ho's line, and then this awesome bar fight where Santa strangles the muscle, and the bartender accidentally finishes the job with the knife that he was just using to slice limes in the most dangerous, this is not how you slice limes type of way.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Chances are he would have one of those metal mesh like gloves on the hand
Oh yeah.
that's holding it, and but whatever. And the bartender takes a pickaxe to the brain. This trucker dude is electrocuted with the stripper pole. We got titties everywhere. The girls all hide, and the preacher is slinking away on the floor after grabbing all his money back up. And Santa lights the place up with a naughty, and his buffalo has clearly eaten the valet. There's nothing but the red ball cap all chewed up. And then we're back to Grandpa and the kids. The kids are on the couch. They're watching like a demolition derby for some reason I didn't know that still existed, but okay, cool.
With so many dick jokes here. Again, another time I noticed, I was like, what are they saying?
Mm-hmm.
So many dick jokes.
Yep. And Grandpa, leaves the kids alone, saying he's going to go to bed. And Mac wishes him a Merry Christmas, forgetting about his hatred for the holiday. She apologizes to Nikki, and they kind of get into it. They get into this fight where Nick calls out her family as a bunch of gun nuts, and she leaves, telling him to call her when he wants to, kind of get serious. But she still wishes him a Merry Christmas before driving off. And Grandpa is actually still up. He's just tinkering away in the basement in front of the security monitors. But I don't know if he was watching this whole thing play out ultimately or what, but that'd be a little creepy.
Yeah, I would hope not. Especially what we find out about Grandpa later. I would hope not. Also,
Yeah.
I want to bring this in real quick because I do have like a little note thing. This is specifically for me, who like a few years back when Bill Goldberg made his return to WWE, watched and I was like, wow, his wife is in the stands with their son. She looks very familiar. And then that year, that Christmas, you know where I'm going with this.
Uh-huh.
That year, this Christmas, ends up watching it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go on IMDb while I watch this movie because I've watched this a million times at this point. Uh, her name is Wanda Ferriton, now Wanda Goldberg, because she's a Canadian stunt performer and one of the strippers who attacked Santa. This was their first day on set. She took the film because she thought Jeff Goldblum was starring in it. She wanted to meet him. And she's the stripper who has the pasties on, is on the swing, wraps his legs around him, and then he's like, "Oh."
Uh-huh.
And honestly, funny enough, which is a very beautiful thing, it was
It's
love
a
at
meet
first sight.
cute.
Yeah, it is a meet cute on the set of this very low budget horror movie. And they've been married ever since. Their son is currently like a cornerback, I think, in college. He's doing very well, and
All
they've been
right.
married ever since.
That's
So
hilarious.
you can find love in the craziest places,
Yeah,
apparently.
looking for love in all the wrong places.
Mhm.
Or maybe the right one. So who
True.
knows?
Very true.
So
How is that the first day you meet your wife is her titties are out?
yeah, yeah.
Not many men can say that, but there's
No,
Bill Goldberg.
no, it's good for him. So yeah, we've got Nick going back to the couch, and he picks up the big thick text, and he's reading a little more about Santa. And we get this like old timey Christmas special type of
Love
version
it.
of those events. Turns out this angel challenged Santa to a curling contest, except they don't refer to it as such. They just, call them just rocks that were on this ice. But essentially, if Santa won, he could take the angel to his father to torment. But if the angel won, then Santa would have to stop his killing and bring nothing but joy each year. And of course, Santa loses and is forced to abide by the terms of the bet for the next 1,000 years. Yeah, well, too bad, so sad.
Yeah.
So
Exactly, it worked out in the Angels' favor.
yeah,
and
yeah, it really
it did.
did because yeah, well,
And I
so
love that it kind of call back to the beginning credits that you mentioned. Now it's a funny seeing Santa with this angry Bill Goldberg face, like
mhm,
giving presents throughout history, these 1,000 years.
yep,
Like these very famous paintings, of, like Santa's just like, "Oh, I'm here. Let me give gifts." And he's just angry. So
yep,
he's like throwing gifts at people. Great,
not
amazing.
pleased. Before Nikki goes to bed, he looks up NORAD's Santa tracker on Yahoo, except it's the Gonad tracker.
Oh, Ned, yes.
And it wasn't Yahoo, but they were making a reference of those old Yahoo ads. And I can't remember what it was. Um,
It was like woohoo or something like that. Yeah,
yeah,
it
something
wasn't.
like
Yeah.
that. But he hops into the little chat window on the NORAD site and he's like, "Is this
Love
real?" And they're like, "How old are you? 16? And you haven't had this conversation yet? No, this is not real."
it. Yeah, I love that the chat bot, like this live person, is like, "I'm sorry to be the one to have this conversation with you, but no,
Right.
Santa's not real." Which any child watching out there, I'm sorry, we're the ones who broke this to you.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I also don't
the
know
best
why
thing
you're
ever from us.
watching this.
Yeah, why
But
are you watching us? Where's your parents?
yep, yep. Um, so yes, he turns off his computer and goes to bed in disgust. The next day, Santa just drives his sleigh straight through this nativity scene, disturbing this older couple. Um, yeah.
Good. Very
it's
funny.
it's so funny because the buffalo actually fits through the opening in the scene, and it's not until like the very upper part of the sleigh with Goldberg comes crashing through it that it gets
Yeah, you're
blown
like,
up.
wait, what's going on?
But yeah, we get a couple of little shits getting their heads blown off by explosive gifts that were left by Santa. I love the little old lady who's like, "Fuck."
She looks so annoyed by their cursing, and when
Uh-huh.
she's like, "Oh fuck!"
Yep. Yeah.
Great line,
There's a
great
reason
delivery.
why I call them, little shits because the
Hmm.
ones like, can we open our motherfucking presents now? It's, wow.
Great,
Wonderful kids.
very.
Cut to the preacher at the church. He's mourning the deaths of the strippers in the fire from the previous night. And he's reading their names. And it's like,
Dying.
Testicle. And I am trying to remember what some of the other ones were. But
I think once Dixie wrecked,
yeah.
yeah. I think there's a candy in there. Of course, there's a candy.
Yep. Yep. We got Santa wrecking shop at the deli. Apparently he was just really hungry. And I think it's Mr. Green, the guy who owns it.
Yes, I believe
Um,
so.
Ultimately he's like, "Hey, we're closed. There's the Thai place across the street. They've got a, all day buffet type thing going on if you're really that hungry." But yeah, ultimately Santa bashes through the door. He even flips the sign around to show open. Um,
I don't know why.
uh,
I don't know why that cracked me up to him just busting his hand through, flipping the sign, and then
uh-huh.
busting the rest of the way through. Like, I
Yeah.
like you're open.
And they're like throwing shit each other from each side of the room. And finally, Santa just dives through the display case at him and pins him up against the wall with a menorah through his throat.
Yes.
Wow.
With a very patented Goldberg spear, which was one of his finishers. So to see that, that's something I noticed with professional wrestlers doing movies, like a lot of film. At least one of their films, especially if they're in the franchise, you at least get it one time.
Yeah.
They will use their move in that movie. Um, I think one of the most egregious one. No surprise here. Dwayne the Rock Johnson did the
Mhm.
rock bottom to Jason Statham in I think Fast 6, maybe Fast 7, whichever one Jason Statham's in. I think
Probably
it's
would have
7.
been 7. Was it in that opening
Yeah.
scene in the office
Yes.
building? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool shot,
Oh,
but
yeah.
as, like, a wrestling fan, I was like, "Ah, you finally got the rock bottom in there." Uh, Roman Reigns, who also is a very proficient with the spear, does that in Hobbs and Shaw, funny enough, alongside his cousin, The Rock. You'll get this every once in a while. I think John Cena has done his attitude adjustment in the Fast and Furious movies. Batista, I'm pretty sure, has powerbombed somebody in one of his movies. Yeah, not his more serious roles because he actually. This is the best part of this being a movie podcast. I can say this: he's the best movie wrestler turned movie actor of our generation. So I
Dave
can say that.
Bautista's a great fucking actor.
He's a
He
honestly a
needs
guy.
more
A great,
serious roles. Sure,
more serious romantic comedies.
he's
Do all
got
of that.
great timing and everything for comedy, but
Mhm.
at the end of the day, yeah, he's a good serious actor. Jesus, that
No.
opening section of Blade Runner 2049,
Yes.
just
Oh my
kind of
gosh.
heartbreaking. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's as
Give
much
Dave
as
Bautista more roles.
yeah, and he's said that he wants to, tone down like the action roles and, the stuff like playing what's his butt in Guardians of the Galaxy, just because
Yeah, Drax and everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's at a point
absolutely.
in his life where he's old enough that he can't keep trying to maintain his physique for roles like that. It's too hard. Yeah,
And
I
you
don't
see
know.
The Rock and other actors of his generation doing the same thing. We're like, don't do it. Just don't.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna kill yourself doing that kind of stuff. I mean, look at Hugh Jackman. It's jacked as all get out for Deadpool and Wolverine. And it's like, how old are you again? You're like pushing
Yeah.
60, right? It's
Yeah. How much
oof,
does this hurt?
I know.
Is it worth it? Is my entertainment worth it? Because I'm gonna say no.
Yeah. Yeah. Color me entertained. But at the end of the day, I'd rather, if you want to go on to do some romantic comedies or some dramas, by all means, go ahead and do
I'll still
that.
watch those. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
watched Deadpool Wolverine. I want to watch all of your movies because I like you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, we've got Nikki stopping for a pack of gum at this gas station, and is this weird exchange between him and the attendant. And the guy's got a police scanner there, and he hears that there's been some violence at the deli. So he races off, and he actually ends up beating the cops there. And so he goes inside, and he steps through this broken door, and my immediate reaction is, dumbass, I understand you're trying to save your boss who's like your buddy, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day,
Like,
yeah,
you're
this
right
is not
there.
good.
Don't-
um and yeah, he even just goes right behind the counter and tries to pull the menorah out of the guy's throat. Well, turns out Mr. Green's still alive, and he warns him that Santa is real right before he dies. And there's that comment of, I didn't think your people believed in him. Jesus.
which if you're watching the movie and not knowing the context that like
Right.
basically every actor is Jewish, it was like, what the fuck, man? This is a fucked up joke. But then with the context of pretty much everyone being Jewish, it's hilarious. It's such a funny line. It was like, I thought you people didn't believe in Santa. It was like, well, none of y'all do. What do y'all mean?
Yeah, the subtext in a film like this can be a ton of fun. It's yeah,
Mhm.
different subtext, but in an equally fun way. An American Werewolf in London
Oh
has
yes.
this just it's the early 80s, so you would definitely still call it like post-war era, and it definitely is like that, Jewish American post-war experience in
Hmm.
that film in some of the best ways. It's fucking hilarious.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, it's the cops show up, and I think I completely missed the part where Santa leaves the deli after killing this dude, and he walks by this kind of group of like Hasidic Jews. They've got the
Yes.
whole thing going on there, and he hisses at them. It's it,
It's so random.
It's yeah, and they're standing outside when the cops get there because I think they were the ones who ended up calling it in. But yeah, the cops are fucking dumb, and they
Stupid.
ultimately round everybody up, throw them in the same patrol car, and take them back to the station for questioning. Okay.
Awesome.
We get Nick calling Mac to come get him, and then they take him to go speak with the police captain, and we get some horrible gay jokes through here. It's Captain Caulk.
Yes.
We're gonna make a point to pronounce that carefully.
Yeah. It's funny because like there it starts off as just like dick jokes
Uh-huh.
and like, oh, dick. You like dick? Oh, I thought you were like ass and it's borderline, like it's skirting the line of like irrelevant and funny at the same time.
Yeah.
And then the second Nikki walks in, it just turns. And I was like, ah, there we go, back to the
Yep.
gay bashing horror
Yeah,
or
we are
comedy. Like
very much
does
in the
not work.
mid aughts. We
Hmm.
we have the wrestling fan base of the mid aughts. We
Unfortunately, yes.
yeah,
Unfortunately, yes.
they know where their bread is buttered, so that's where they
Yeah.
went. So Nick is just kind of starting to put it all together, but the man really doesn't want to listen to him. Basically, throws him out of his office. The cops are continuing to be dumb. They've got this map of the town where all the killings were located, and it's in the shape of a Christmas tree. And they're like, well, maybe the next one's going to be here, like where the star would be on the top of the tree.
I do love. He's like, it looks like an open parallelogram. Like
It's a
it's like
geometric shape.
it's such an underrated
And,
joke.
and meanwhile, there's this other cop walking behind them with a
With the
Christmas
ticking
package
bomb.
that's ticking like crazy. And he's walking very, very carefully and very, very concerned look on his face. But there's no callback to that. But yeah, we get Mac and Nick driving off to go see his grandpa, and just like a couple of lines between them, and then we're right back to the cop shop where somebody's pounding on the captain's office door, and when he finally gets up to go open it, Santa fucks him up,
Oh,
and
whooped his ass.
yep. And as Santa leaves, it's revealed that the other cops are already dead. You got the one cop on the map with all the little pins stabbed in him all over the place. There's the one cop that's on the floor with a tape outline around him already. It's it- that
Just
was
the context in my brain of Santa being like, "Hey, listen, real quick. This is funny for me only.
yeah,
I'm gonna
exactly.
yes. Oh, and one of the yeah, that's like, and then also one of the officers because I'm looking at the kill count here as well. Sergeant Dick Zucker. Dick
Jesus.
Zucker. That's the name of one of the police officers.
All right. All right. Back in Mac's truck, they're getting pulled over by the police, and there are more dumb jokes about the police captain's name during this
Mhm.
exchange. Um, they finally realized that they were pulled over by Santa in a stolen police cruiser. Nick tells her to floor it. They take off. Santa chasing after them, T-1000 style there for a second. He manages to climb into the back of the truck. Mac's like, my dad's gun's under the seat. It's a shotgun. Nick doesn't know how to load the damn thing, and she gives him this crash course on how to do it. It's super awkward, and it kind of goes on just a little too long, I think. But ultimately, they do the thing where they brake and then speed up a little bit to kind of shake Santa up there on top of the truck, and they finally do manage to get a shot off and knock him off the back, but he's only really just slightly stunned. That's all. Um, yeah, they get him off the truck and they speed off to Grandpa's. And again, the key situation is completely ridiculous. She's like needling him to hurry up, and he's like got to dig the keys out and everything. Why doesn't he have all these keys on a ring for himself? Is it
Yeah.
because he's 16 and it's supposed to be that he's, too young and not responsible enough to carry the set of house keys around? It's to me, that's more like a grade schooler thing or something like that. I don't
Yes, I
know.
expect that. I expect that of my 7-year-old, not not a 60-year-old who, fairly like he's fairly competent. Like he has the job, like he has
Yeah.
a friend, like he's pretty responsible compared to his grandfather, who is like very aloof
Yeah.
for the most part. Like he seems like the responsible one in the household. So like, why don't you have keys?
Yeah.
Or is
It's
that the whole setup? Like you're not allowed to have keys.
maybe. I don't know. It's super unnecessary, but they finally get inside. They race down to find him in the basement because of course that's where he's gonna be. And Grandpa is super concerned about Santa following them. And then he sees, something on the monitors and it's fucking carolers, and they're like in the middle of the day. And Mac runs outside to go wave them off, and Nick goes up to, kind of protect her, I guess. And they try to tell them to run, but Santa arrives and he starts fucking them up. The kids lock the door and they get back down into the bunker with Grandpa. Santa, meanwhile, is just wrecking fools. Just
Tearing house.
oh yeah, you got the one lady who gets thrown and like her back snapped in half over the like
Mhm.
outside corner of some concrete or something like that. Um, so yeah, they're like, what are we gonna do? It's Christmas time and I'm trapped in a bunker with my grandpa while Santa's trying to kill us or something like that. Um, yeah, then Santa's in the house already. He's broken the door down, and he's like searching around for them. Um, and turns out there's like a secret passage in the water heater that's not a water heater. Um, I don't know.
I mean,
uh,
for as aloof as Grandpa Yulson is, at the same time,
yeah,
kind of a genius,
yeah,
like an idiot savant.
yeah. So, yeah, they escape through that passage while Santa's wailing on the door to the bunker. And they're all convinced at this point they just need to make it to midnight at the North Pole, that Christmas will officially be done at that point and they'll be safe at least for another year. um and it turns out that there's a couple of snowmobiles in the garage for the kids, and Grandpa is going to try to cover their escape. And Nikki starts up right away, but Mac's snowmobile, she's having a really tough time getting it started. Santa appears in the alleyway, and he and Grandpa banter back and forth a bit. Meanwhile, I think Santa was ultimately doing all this banter with him just to distract him, because Santa's sleigh comes barreling down the alleyway behind Grandpa, and Grandpa gets run over by a reindeer. Um,
Great joke.
Yep, yep. He is absolutely flattened too. We get
Mhm.
Mac jumping on the back of Nikki's snowmobile and they drive off with Santa basically harassing them from the air with exploding presents. It's like Green Goblin throwing pumpkin bombs type of situation.
Very much so.
Um, and they drive off into the woods to try to get a little bit of cover from the trees, and that's effective for a little bit until they have to break out into the open again, right into the path of all these people who are shooting skeet. um, they don't get shot, thankfully. They make it into town, causing chaos, driving the snowmobile through all these people. They're trying to warn people to get away, that Santa's coming, and everybody thinks they're just a bunch of asshole kids because they're nearly getting run down by a snowmobile. The preacher is actually in a Santa costume directing like a bell choir in the middle of the town during all of this. And somehow when Santa arrives and starts creating even more chaos, he gets flipped up and into the sleigh next to the real Santa.
Perfect timing too by Dave Thomas, because I think at one point he pushes one of the carolers. He's like, "Move, bitch!"
Yeah,
Like
yeah. He's
his
running
screen
for it.
better.
Yeah.
And I think anyone else, like, it wouldn't has been as funny, but this again, something about
Uh-huh.
comedic genius Dave Thomas in this role that just makes it so much more funny than it should be.
Yep. Yep. He works just fine. Um, the kids, they make it to the high school and they break in to hide. And there's this whole sequence of him not being able to smash the glass because he's a fucking weakling. She manages to do it. The scene of her sliding in under the window, but she can't quite make it because it's really narrow, and he's got to help her squeeze under, and essentially he's got to put his hands on her chest to do it, and he's awkward about it. And she's like, "Do I have to make every fucking move in this relationship?" Um,
I love
it's
that she's the one who calls it a relationship because they're like just friends for the most part. She's like,
right.
"Dude, I want more than this, and you are not picking up on this, so I'm gonna."
This entire film, there are the most overt signals whatsoever. And he continues to fuck it up, from
Yeah.
right from the jump where she's, doing the finger toothbrush with the toothpaste because he's going to be
Mhm.
in the car with her because she offered a ride, and just everything from there. Yeah.
Everything on, yeah, it's the opposite of Dan to Dan. For
Yeah.
for for people watching, it's the opposite. It's like, yes, they're idiots, but, like, one's more stupid than the other in this one.
Yep. Yep. As opposed to both of them being very stupid and time to time.
Mhm, mhm.
But so stupid for each other. It's perfect. Um,
Beautiful.
it's the story of our time. Um, but yes, in the school, they're trying to find a good place to hide, but Santa manages to break in and he surprises them from behind. He's got for whatever reason, a glow stick in the shape of a candy cane. And we get,
It's lightsaber. I was like, "What?
sure,
Why?"
we get this, who's your daddy? Father Christmas line.
Mm.
They take refuge in the library. And when he enters, we get his whole "not a creature is stirring" line. And he starts throwing smoke bombs to chase them out. Um, Also, we get the fun bit of Santa reading A Christmas Carol and then ultimately throwing the book and beating Nick
Yes.
right between the eyes with it. They kind of fumble their way out of the library, and I'm hoping it wasn't connected to it because that would be weird. But they make it to the ice rink, because of course this school has an ice rink. It's
Of course.
yeah. And they slip and fall, and there they are. And they have this nice little quiet moment together where they almost kiss, but then Zamboni attack. Um, they kind of get chased around the ice a little bit by Santa on a Zamboni. And
A very obnoxiously fast Zamboni at
yeah,
that.
yeah, they're not that fast.
No, not at
they're,
all.
they're slow as fuck. But yeah, Nicky's got this flashlight that his grandfather gave him, and he's shining it in Santa's eyes, and he's like, "I'm Santa Claus, not fucking Dracula." Um, it's a good
I
line.
died laughing.
Yeah.
It's a great line.
And then right when they're about to get smashed up against the glass by the Zamboni, Grandpa returns just in time and saves them with a curling stone that somehow, by getting lodged in the machine from behind, stops it. I
Stops it from going forward.
sure, whatever. And here is the reveal, if it wasn't super obvious from everything before. Grandpa is actually the human form of the angel from the story. And yeah, so basically, here I am to save the day, and I'm going to challenge you to another
Mhm.
curl off. And Santa whips out Zach's letter to Santa from when he was a little kid. And we learned that he actually asked for the knockoff Easy Bake Oven after all. And the,
Yeah.
the look,
Not Transformers.
yes, not Transformers, not He Man. Nope, nope. He asked for that oven. And the fucking look that this girl that wants him so badly gives him just this look of disgust.
It's just annoyance,
It's
like,
yeah, she's so
really?
annoyed. Yeah,
And I don't even think it's the fact that it was like an easy bake oven. For me, it was like he was made such a point, like, "Oh, I want Transformers or
right. He couldn't
Castle
just
Grayskull."
admit that he
Yeah,
actually
it
wanted
was
that
that.
thing.
It was like, "Dude, you didn't have to lie to me." Like,
Right.
this
Right.
girl is like, "I am trying to bone you. Why
Yes.
are you making it so hard for me?
He
Why are
really
you making
is.
it so
He
difficult?"
really is. Um, so yeah, yeah. So curl off. And Santa stomps this portal to hell on the ice. And Grandpa goes first this time because in the legend, Santa was so full of himself that he went first, and then the angel is able to knock his stone into the hole and get the better of him. But yeah, Grandpa gets it right there to the edge, and then Santa's about to throw his stone there, but instead picks up Grandpa and slides him instead. And that old man goes right down the hole, and we get the scoreboard lighting up 666. Um,
Very good.
Yep, yep. Christmas is over when I say it's over, is essentially Santa's deal here because the kids are like, wait, it's over. He's like, no, no, technically at the North Pole, it's where all the time zones converge. So, time is subjective there. And Max, like, wow, it's terrifying, but it's educational or something like that.
It's such a great line. I was like, wow, he's really frightening, but like very educational about it.
Yeah, yeah. And Santa's about to, come for them, and he's gonna like spitfire at him, but right at that moment, Nicky reaches into his backpack and he pulls out that nutcracker. There was this comment earlier in the film about chestnuts and how if you don't pierce the skin, they'll actually explode when you heat them up. Um,
Mm.
and he's got one in the mouth of the nutcracker, and he fires this projectile chestnut at Santa as Santa is spitting fire at him. And of course, the two projectiles collide. It heats up the chestnut and it slams into Santa's chest and knocks him back. And we get the dumb line from Nikki: chest, ellipsis, nut. And yeah, yeah. They hear Grandpa from the hole and they race over. He's still hanging on. He's still hanging on, but he's getting a little
Barely.
extra roasted there. While they're trying to pull him up, Santa gets up and escapes on the Zamboni, crashing through the wall of the rink to the outside. Um, he gets back to his sleigh and finally kills the preacher, who's waking up thinking it's all a dream. And yeah, it's he gets cracked over the head with like a mallet or something. Um,
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah.
yeah. Grandpa explains himself to the kids, and ultimately they all kind of decide to go off after Santa together because it's not done. Um,
Hmm.
and then it's discovered that Grandpa can't actually follow them. There's something of a barrier there in the ice rink, and he just kind of fades away. Um, but Nick and Mac, they end up finding her family, who's just out there doing, I don't know if they were ice fishing or just drinking with guns. I don't know. But they see Santa's sleigh and his hell buffalo in the air, and they convince these people to shoot it down because it would be such a great trophy. And the guy's got the cancer kazoo going, and you know
It's so
um
sad. It's
it's
so messed up. His llama cash that he cashed in for
right,
what
right.
we're about to announce. But like, also, this is the same group of people that have been ski shooting since like early this morning on Christmas Day. And that I had that in my notes. I'm like, who ski shoots on Christmas Day? But this town is very strange, so
Yeah,
not that surprising.
yeah. And yeah, Yes, turns out that Mac's father has a bazooka. So, in addition to all these people firing their rifles at this thing flying through the air, he launches this bazooka, paid for by Llama Cash, at the Hell Buffalo, and they blow it out of the sky. They get some organs that drop out of the air on them. And somehow this thing isn't blown to bits because in a later scene, we see it tied up with a tarp on the hood of somebody's truck. Um, and I would think the weight of this thing would just like destroy the front of somebody's truck.
Like, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
But yeah, they're back at the high school then, and that they find that the preacher in his Santa suit is impaled on the flagpole, to the point where like the American flag has been rung up through the hole in his body. Um, but all the townsfolk seem to think that he's the one that killed all these people. Santa just kind of set him up as the patsy. Um, but Mac and Nick realize that they'll have a fight ahead of them in the future, and they finally kiss. Um,
Finally.
yeah. Cut to Mr. Shotton checking in at the airport because he has to fly home commercial. Um, there's the funny line, which is just perfect in 2005 because it's like 4 years after 9/11 about, has your sack been in your possession this entire time that you've been here?
This is one of the few jokes that work. Yeah.
Yeah. And we go to credits and some like, it's one of those things where it's a movie that doesn't have the rights to recognizable Christmas music. Or to a large degree.
Oh my God,
so there's so much like music that was clearly written for the film. And that plays throughout the credits, and most of it's all right. And then we get the post credits stinger with one of Bill Goldberg's famous lines of "Who's next?" And yeah, that's it.
That's the movie. Yeah. That is Santa Slay, 2005 Santa Slay, with like a perfect stinger for now for the regular television. Or I'm sorry, the regular movie version. Now for television wise, for Carlos in 2006, I teed this up earlier in the episode. The television version, because they would skip, the credits. They fast forward through them,
Sure.
to whatever next movie they're playing in, like their 14-hour block.
Yeah.
So I had these notes when I put this in. So originally there was a fun TV edit that at the end, for some reason there was something they showed Mac's character um in the airport as well. I don't know if there's like alternate scenes or whatever. And Emily Riven's character looks like she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go aboard the plane or whatever," and then the freeze frames on her face, and it says she got dot 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 lost, which
Wow.
yeah, yeah, which if you know, Emily DeVreen plays Claire Littleton in the very underrated, some people would say, especially now in 2024, sci-fi series that is Lost. That was like a cultural phenomenon around this time. But yeah, they put that little stinger in the TV edit version, and I remember seeing it, and I was like, "This fucking movie is fucking amazing. Why? Why?" And then it played, "Oh, who's next?" The line from Goldberg, which we got. And then I have some cool little trivia if you have a moment with me, Joe.
By all means.
So we mentioned, the fact that Goldberg met his wife on set. There is a very interesting wrestling fact here. There are 3 WCW, pardon me, characters in this movie alone.
Okay.
So we have Bill Goldberg, who's one of the, seminal WCW World Heavyweight Champions. We have Vince Russo, who plays one of the strip club attendees. He's just a uncredited cameo. He's one of the many people that Goldberg kills. And he is known infamously throughout the wrestling world for giving David Arquette the World Heavyweight Championship in WCW.
That's
The
right.
guy
That
who
was the
wrote that
thing.
storyline. Yeah, that was a thing. David Arquette has made good with the wrestling fans with his post WCW run a few years back where he almost died. But he has made good to us. We love him now, but at the time we did not, and it's because of Vince Russo. Um, and he's in this film for some reason. And finally, who a lot of us know as Debo in Friday, who's in this movie, Tiny Lister.
Okay. Yeah.
He played a notable figure in the Hulk Hogan movie No Holds Barred back in the day in the 80s, late 80s, and then appeared again post Friday in WCW as someone trying to take out Hulkamania in 1996. That's a little trivia. 3 contracted WCW people at one point were in this movie for whatever goddamn reason, other than Goldberg. Goldberg makes sense. Everyone else doesn't. And then finally, I'd be remiss to say this because as being a hockey fan myself, there are every shirt that Nicholas uses in this movie is from an Ontario Hockey League jersey. They're official
Okay.
jerseys. They are the AAA team of Canada. So they are official jerseys. They are the Greyhounds, the Bombers, and I believe there's a third team I always cannot place, but I wanted to shout out my friend Joey for pointing that out when I made him watch it with me. He's like, "Oh, I know that jersey." I was like, "Oh, really?" I pulled my phone out. Like, thanks. That's nowhere on IMDb for this, but yeah, they are actual teams. There are
All
Ontario
right.
Hockey League teams.
All right. Yeah, it's I mean, most of it was filmed in Alberta.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it all makes sense. It's a good stand-in for snowy Midwest town that would be in an area that happens to like hockey and I
guns.
guess curling, certainly
Yeah,
guns. That's pretty prevalent in a lot of America as it is, but certainly more so than a lot of Canada. But yeah, it's
yep.
oof.
That was it.
Yeah. Um, I'll say this movie, yes, it's very dumb. Yeah, there's a lot of
Very
it
dumb.
that is has aged like old milk.
Yes,
But at the end of the day, yeah, it's fun enough for a holiday horror watch list. Absolutely. You get such a fun performance out of Goldberg in this. He's hamming it up. He's
absolutely.
having a great time. And even though so many of the cameos from different people are not well acted, they're,
Mhm.
just they are what they are. It's still kind of fun. Um, yeah, it's a shame that there's a lot of this film, and I know it went like right to DVD, right?
Oh,
Um, but a lot of this film just feels like TV movie, like borderline Hallmark movie type thing. And it's kind of a shame because I feel like with just a little bit more polish, this could have had just a little bit better showing. There's parts of it that just the look of the film, it's like, you went with that. Okay,
yeah.
that's
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 where
that's
you
what you
went.
wanted. Yeah,
That was a choice.
cool. I
Exactly.
mean, at the end of the day, like we said, this writer director, this is his one and only. Short of being like an assistant
Yeah.
for Brett Ratner, doing
Which
those.
that in itself sucks. That
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah, you got to figure that guy's seen some shit. Um, Unfortunately. Um, but yeah, yeah, it's a good time at the very least. And if you can get past some of the stuff that hasn't aged well, then yeah, again, worthy addition to just about any holiday horror watch list, I would say.
Yeah, I wish there was a way to go back in time and like give this production crew just a little bit more money and be like, "Hey, can I look at the script real quick? Let me just take some things out real quick, just because they're not
Mhm.
going to age in like 20 years, and actually, they don't age right now. They're not good. Just let me see the
Yeah.
script real quick, because if you take some of the very horrible jokes that you get toward the gay community in this, and
Mhm.
again, unfortunately, that was a sign of the times in
Yeah,
the aughts.
it really
Um,
was.
yeah, that was something we dealt with. I was not above, unfortunately. like 2003, 2004, Carlos was not above making these jokes. 2004, late 2004, late early 2005 was like, wow, what a piece of shit I am. I should not be making these jokes. And then post 2005 was like, yeah, this doesn't fly. This doesn't fly. Not funny.
Yeah. My whole experience
Um,
is very, very similar in its time frame. And
yeah.
yeah. Conversation I
And
was,
it hurts when you were like rewatching this movie. There's so much that is so fun with this movie. Obviously, the performances, like Goldberg is hamming it up,
oh
and
yeah,
it's not too cartoonish. Like it works perfectly for the film that we have. Um, I maybe if we didn't have those cameos in the very beginning and you put that money toward the production, maybe it looks a little cleaner. Maybe it looks a little
yeah,
nicer. Maybe you get something that's not as rough looking as this is, or maybe Brett Ratner's not super cheap, and he just like, hey, yeah, whatever you guys want. I made Rush Hour. I have a shitload of money. Like you guys can do whatever you want with this money. But he's a piece of shit, so
yeah,
that would have never happened. And there's no universe where he's not a piece of shit. I don't think. Um, unfortunately. And that's someone who loves his Red Dragon movie. That sucks. You know?
yeah. It's
Well, everybody gets one, so that's fair.
I suppose.
Yeah,
I
everyone gets
suppose.
one good movie.
Yeah, I still think I prefer Manhunter to Red Dragon, but Red Dragon's still
Yes,
fun.
hey,
It,
that's the unfortunate thing. It is fun. The Red Dragon is fun. Yeah. But I think there's something here. There's a an odd sweetness that comes from it because
yeah.
of, I guess, being a Christmas movie. The main cast of Robert Culp, the gentleman who plays Nicholas, and the Emily who plays Mac,
Mhm.
I think have a really good time, know what they're doing with this movie, especially with Emily and the gentleman playing Nicholas. Like they are very young and they know what kind of movie they're in at this point, and that's an unheard talent, I think, at that time, especially that early in their careers. Like to know, be like, hey, I know what kind of movie I'm in. Let's just have fun. Let's
Yeah.
have fun. Let's play around in this world a little bit. And there are some very subtle jokes. Of course, if you want to go crude humor, like all the dick jokes are funny enough on their own. If you want a very crude, like 90s, 2000 aughts esque movie, and that maybe it might not appeal to someone who doesn't find dick jokes funny, in 2024, but they're not as offensive as all the gay jokes or the other egregious jokes that we get in this movie, which do unfortunately hold it back.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the base level of this movie is very fun, very enjoyable.
Mhm.
If you're like, hey, what Christmas horror movie should I go out to see? If you have time, fit this in. And if you have drinks, fit this in because this is a fun, you know, grab some coquito, grab like some snacks, get drunk, watch this movie, laugh, have a good time. If you're a wrestling fan, you get that added layer. Yeah, it's
There
like,
you
is
go.
this fucking famously Jewish, pro wrestler Bill Goldberg as the son of Satan pretending to be Santa for a whole 1,000 years? Yes, it is. This is amazing. Like that joke in itself is hilarious. And
Yep.
then if someone could tell you before you watch this movie, like, hey, uh, here's a bunch of drinks, here's a 6 pack of like 12% beer, drink this. Um, Everyone in the movie is Jewish, so this is very tongue in cheek from jump.
Yeah.
And just have fun, just here you go. Enjoy your night. Like I think you can have a fun night with this.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think you can have a really
a
good
good time will be had. It's yeah, and it's something fun to pick apart as well. So
yes.
that ultimately adds an extra layer on top of things there too. If you're
I
anything
have
of a
I
horror nerd, if you're anything of like like you
yeah.
said, anybody who's a huge wrestling fan, you're gonna get certainly more out of it than I suppose a normie just popping this on for you know
Yeah, you can't be a normie watching this movie.
I
Absolutely
really
not.
don't think so. It's
No,
you got to work up to
you're not gonna
this.
enjoy it.
You got to work
Yeah,
up to this. Maybe start with Krampus.
yes. If you could get through Krampus, you enjoy it. You're like, all right, let me work my way through others. Hey, let's watch Black Christmas. Let's watch, the remake of Black Christmas, the most recent one. That's a little more tongue in cheeky. Like,
Yeah.
millennial, Gen X, I'm sorry, Gen Z, like humor. Let's go through that. Let's work our way to this. Let's work our way to this. This is not something you just jump in. And this is something similar. It's funny watching this movie again last night and, having a couple drinks and like writing my notes and having a good time and seeing my previous notes from like 3 years ago. Um, and like, wow, like I do really enjoy this movie, but like for like very fun reasons. Like, it's a fun movie to just have popcorn, talk to someone, just like shit on it for like the bad stuff, have fun with
Yeah.
the very goofy parts. It reminds me of an experience I had with one of my best friends, Lisa, where she was like, "Dude, you never seen this movie called Swim Fan?" I don't know if you, yeah, Joe. I already know you're laughing at this, so this is perfect. I've never experienced the movie Swim Fan in the late '90s, early 2000s until around maybe this time, 2007, 2008 ish, maybe. And I remember being over at my friend's house and her gonna be like, "Dude, this movie's like funny. Let's watch this." And I was like, "All right." And she's like, "I have a couple drinks." I'm like, "Cool." And I proceeded to get so drunk, Joe, watching the thriller, yelling at the TV at this stupid man having an affair with his stupidly beautiful girlfriend with this other woman who's batshit crazy. And I had such a fun time talking shit about this movie, which is a very good, movie all to. We're not talking about that movie, but I'm down to talk about that movie. But we're not talking about that one today. But like having fun, like having that experience with somebody and just like being like, what the fuck is this? Or like, yes, what is this? What is this movie? And having like showing this to my best friend Joey a few years back and be like, yo, what the fuck are we watching? I'm like, listen, and him laughing at like some of the Bill Goldberg jokes and seeing like him, his limited knowledge of wrestling, seeing Goldberg spear through a Jewish deli counter. This nice Jewish man, and then stab him with a menorah, and then make the like dumb Jewish joke, and then quote Christmas Carol and throw a book at someone, you know, all these little and lose a curling match. You're like, what a ridiculously fucking stupid fun movie. God damn it. And then at the end of it, I looked at him like, look, we're both 2 sheets to the wind. And did you have a good time? He's like, yeah, I did. I'm like, exactly. That's what you get with this movie.
Yep.
You're gonna have a fun time.
Absolute cinema.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh God. Well, I thank you for bringing this film into my radar. Absolutely, because we were talking about this on the Nightlight Discord, right? It was
Yes,
that
we were.
conversation about Christmas horror, and you were like, I see an episode in the future, and I'm like, I'm going to take you up on that.
Hell yeah.
All I know is that this is a film about an evil Santa with Goldberg, so sure, let's make
Again,
this happen.
that right
And
there sells you on it, man.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
also, I think there's a universe out there where this would make a really good episode of Supernatural.
Okay.
Like it, give it a little more polish.
Cut it
This
down
could
to
be a
42
very
minutes. Yep.
Yeah, cut it down to 42 minutes. Have Sam and Dean in it. You can have the humor. You can have some irreverent humor in that episode. Not anything horrible that we see here, but have a killer Santa, some demon that's been haunting people in this town or some shit. I was like, this is like a great supernatural episode. If you just tweak it ever so slightly.
I like it. I like it. Well, Carlos, thanks for coming on again. It's always fun to talk movies with you, and fun to get a good podcast out of a good conversation. So
Hell yeah.
I appreciate you, man. Yeah, we'll see about doing something else again in the future, I'm sure. But but in the meantime, this has been Murders with Mertens, a horror film podcast. Thank you for letting us tickle your ear holes. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. I'll be back soon enough with another episode. But until next time, stay spoopy, everyone.